Do you, as an INFJ, need more sleep than you're getting right now? And if you do, why is it a good idea to make more time for it? Stick around for today's show to find out. When I was in college, I read a book about a talk show personality who did an experiment. He checked to see how long he could stay awake without taking any kind of nap or sleeping in any way or form. I think he stayed up 3 days before he had to fall asleep. His body couldn't take it anymore. He was actually in a hospital, and I think they were trying to keep him awake. And toward the end of the experiment on the third day, he started to hallucinate, run up and down the hallways, probably without his clothes on. And then when he finally did go to sleep, he slept for 24 hours straight. But when he woke up, he'd changed and changed for good. His personality had snapped. That reading had a profound effect on me. In reading it, I learned that people should get at least 7 hours of sleep at night, and that's best for most of us. And if you can get more, that's great. So throughout college, I tried to get 7 hours of sleep. But I've since learned that INFJs need even more than that, which brings me to the topic we're talking about today. For a little while now, I've wondered if INFJs need more sleep than other personality types. A couple of years ago, I heard a talk by Michael Hyatt, who's an INFJ, and he was explaining just how important sleep is to anyone's success. In fact, he thinks it's so important that he actually builds a 20-minute nap into his day, and he cites at least one president who used that practice throughout his term in office. But hearing that talk, which was actually one of the most popular podcasts he had ever done, really made me think. And since I've talked to a number of INFJs who need more sleep than other personality types, at first I wondered if it was some kind of weird connection or pattern I was noticing. But not surprisingly, it seems to be a trend among all INFJs, and that started to make me think a couple things. First, why is this the case, and should I be getting more sleep? After bringing the topic up again recently with my mother-in-law, who's an INFJ, I learned that she tends to get between 8 and 10 hours of sleep and needs that, and is actually a lot happier when she gets that much sleep. And that led me to do a little bit of experimenting on my own. So this past week, I've been trying to get as close to 9 hours of sleep as possible. Now, I haven't exactly hit that number, but I've gotten about 8.5 hours of sleep each night. And to be honest, it was a challenge because there's a lot going on in life. We just had a new child, which creates its own problems because my wife isn't getting to sleep as much, and I need to be gracious and help as much as possible. But there are other priorities that I had to work with and try to fix and make more time for. So thinking about all this was complicated, but I've tried to make time for it. And for 3 or 4 days, I've gotten the chance to sleep a bit longer. And to be honest, I feel so much better and more excited about the day when I wake up, more energized, just happier in general. Let's explore 3 reasons why you as an INFJ probably need more sleep than you're getting. And the first is the fact that you are stimulated more than most other personalities. One reason you're more stimulated, or easily stimulated, I should say, is that you're more sensitive to certain types of arousal. You're particularly sensitive due to your introverted intuition and extroverted feeling combination to interpersonal signals from other people. It could be negative feedback from facial expressions or body language. It could be the tone of somebody's voice, or it can even be the particular words that someone uses. If they seem to be unaccepting, you could be more prone to take that language personally. So it's really important that you're recharging because your body is super attuned to that kind of feedback. But you're also super sensitive to regular stimulation, at least the kind of stimulation that might arouse some people in a positive way. So for an extrovert, they may enjoy loud noises. At a party, they might like bright lights, like disco lights. They might even like a loud concert. And to some extent, an INFJ could enjoy that for a short period of time. But for the most part, it's going to be really draining. So if you work in an environment or live in a place where there's lots of that kind of stimulation on a regular basis, it's probably going to drain you faster than it will other personality types. I can give you a specific story. One of my best friends in high school and still a friend to this day is an ESTJ. And I didn't know it at the time, but during high school, he was involved in all kinds of committees like most ESTJs enjoy getting involved in. And he was a member or leader of this group and that group. He was on the basketball team with me. He was in a lot of AP classes. He was doing a lot. And he was averaging about 6 hours of sleep a night. And I would look at my friend and I think, what's wrong with me? How can this guy be going so strong? And I just feel completely wiped. And I was getting like 7 or 7.5 hours of sleep a night, but I felt like I needed way more. And I felt like I was a second class citizen or there was something wrong with me. But come to find out, I think it's just the fact that we're wired differently. The things that drain me were stimulating him and vice versa. So when I got to college, I had the ability to sit and concentrate on a book for 3 hours pretty happily. I mean, after that amount of time, I would be a little bit tired, but that sort of thing energized me. I loved going into the book stacks and learning for an extended period of time. Whereas when he was doing that kind of work, it wasn't his favorite kind of studying. It was more draining. So it was the fact that we were in different environments. But the bottom line is that most of everyday life isn't life in a college library. It's busier. There's more noise. There are more lights. There's more activity. A lot depends on where you live, of course, but we tend to get drained more easily. I've already mentioned this one in my own experiment, but I'll say it again. If you sleep more, it's highly likely that you'll enjoy your life a lot more. Thinking back to times when I was a teacher and a volleyball coach, and when I was participating in different groups at church and involved in still other committees, I was doing too much at one time. I didn't mention grad school too. I was trying to do all that stuff at one time. Of course, I wasn't married, and that adds another dimension. And I'm not sure what all is going on in your life. Thinking back too, I had a hard time saying no. So when people asked me to do something, I would just take it on because first I was flattered that they'd ask, but I wasn't careful about keeping my own boundaries. So I took on too much and I didn't sleep as much as I needed to. I heard a talk a couple of years ago from a doctor who was saying that if you are feeling depressed, before you just go and blame it on psychological issues or spiritual issues, which are legitimate, by the way, you should also think about the physical. Are you eating right? Are you exercising? And are you getting enough sleep? Those are all important matters. And sleep was one of those pieces of the puzzle. So if you want to avoid depression and discouragement, a big piece is making sure you get enough rest. And you as an intuitive, someone who likes to explore new avenues, try new ways of doing things, make things better, get into new ideas, as opposed to sensors who tend to rely on experience and what's worked in the past, you're going to have more of a roller coaster sort of life, more highs and lows, because some of your ideas are going to work out great and be exhilarating and enthralling, whereas others are going to be a bit discouraging. So it's really important that you have the margin you need, the rest you need to energize you for the way you like to approach the world. And getting more sleep can help you to be happier as you do it. Finally, and this is a side benefit, making time to get more sleep will force you to prioritize. You can't take more activity and squeeze it into the same hours in the day. You're going to have to make decisions. Now, there are ways you can be more effective with your time, ways you can kill two birds with one stone. But those things aside, we all have the same amount of hours in the day, and we just can't keep pushing things in without having to get rid of something else. There's a cost-benefit analysis that you always have to do and an opportunity cost that you need to consider. So if you want to get more sleep, which I would highly recommend, you have to first decide what your priorities are. And when you start to prioritize sleep, you're going to need to get rid of other things. And this may not be a bad thing. I love the Stephen Covey illustration of the big rocks, which I've mentioned before. If you have a jar and you have large rocks, medium-sized rocks, gravel, and sand, and you want to fit it all in, don't start with the sand, because once the sand's in, you're going to have trouble fitting all the other rocks in, especially the big rocks, which represent your most important priorities. But if you reverse the order and put the big rocks in, your most important priorities like sleep, family, friends, exercise, spiritual growth, whatever it is for you, you'll be able most likely to fit the other things in. And if some of the gravel and sand doesn't fit in, well, those things, which tend to be TV or maybe just going for a random walk or exploring some idea, they're not as important. So you're not going to be disappointed when they don't fit in. And going through this process again can be really helpful. So when you move sleep up, maybe you're going to get rid of some of your TV time, or maybe some of those committees that you decided that you'd be a part of but didn't really want to be a part of, you'll be able to start saying no to them. It's going to force you to create boundaries, and it's going to also force you to decide what's really important to me so that you're not wasting time on things that aren't essential. So really quick, here are 5 suggestions for how you can make time for more sleep. And the first one is to set boundaries. In the past, the availability of light during the day would create boundaries for people. People slept more in the winter because most of the time they worked out in the fields. At least a lot of people did. And when the crops weren't growing, they had a downtime in their lives. But now that we work in knowledge work, at least a lot of us, we can do work whenever we have light and whenever we have access to the machines and the technology we need, especially in the digital age, where now we don't even have to be at the workplace. We can work wherever there's a device, and we can even answer email from our phones and our wristwatches. So it's super important we impose our own boundaries. So decide when you're going to stop working. And actually, I just read a great article which had the main point of saying that if you create your own boundaries, your own restrictions and limitations, it'll cause you to be more creative with how you can get things done in less time or within the constraints you set, whether it's less money or with fewer meetings, whatever it is that you're setting a constraint on. So I'd really encourage you to set your own boundaries and to keep in mind what Michael Hyatt says again, that you can't expect other people to be sensitive to your schedule because they don't know what's on it. You have to do that yourself. And learning to say no will actually help you to say yes to more important priorities. In addition to enforcing your boundaries, it's important that you determine your priorities. And you might want to do that first because it'll help you to decide what's important to you and to attach weight to it so that you can enforce the boundaries. But going through a process of writing down what really matters to you and then ranking it can be helpful. And you might want to just number your list and then add a letter to each of the numbers. And it can also be really helpful to associate a why with each of your priorities. Like, for instance, I want to spend time with my family because when it comes to the end of life, they'll be the people that are there at my deathbed and really the people that I want to know well. Or exercise and rest are important to me because I want to be around to serve people and to spend time with my family. And if I don't take care of myself, I won't be able to do that. Those are some of the whys you might want to associate as you work through your priorities. Something else that might help you to get more sleep is to set a goal. Interestingly, setting a goal can just turn your focus on that particular thing, especially if you put it in writing. There's a lot of research that says if you write your goals down, you're more likely to achieve them. So one of my goals this year is to get more sleep. And I track it with a simple index card. I just put a check mark or a tally beside each of the days that I actually sleep the amount of time I want. And actually, I don't put it beside a day. I just put it on the card and I'm going to tally it up at the end of the month. But just tracking how often I'm reaching that goal helps me to keep it in my mind and continue to go for it. And then to organize my day in a way where I can actually achieve that goal. The fourth suggestion I have for you is to celebrate whatever progress you do make. While you may not be able to sleep 10 hours, you might be able to sleep 8. And if you were sleeping 6.5 or 7 before, then you'll feel a ton better. So even if you don't reach your set goal, if you're making progress and getting more rest, you're going to feel better. So I encourage you to go for whatever you can get and don't beat yourself up if you don't actually reach the goal. Tip 5 is to be accountable. If you really want to achieve something and do something, then you need to talk about it, especially as an INFJ. Just telling someone else that you've decided to do something and asking them to check in with you will help you follow through. And speaking it out will affirm what you want to accomplish in your own mind. Finally, recognize your phase of life. If you do have a baby, an infant, for instance, it might not be the best time to try to get more sleep. It's just one of those crazy times of life where you need to do whatever you need to do to make sure the baby's getting enough rest. And if you're in some kind of graduate program where you have to put in a ton of hours, it might not be reasonable to try to get 9 or 10 hours of sleep a night. but you still might be able to get a bit more by reorganizing your priorities. So be mindful of where you are in life and gracious with yourself as you think about ways to get more sleep. But ultimately, I think you're going to be a much happier INFJ when you shoot for 8 to 10 hours per night. If you'd like to learn more about your INFJ personality, I'd love to give you a copy of my book, The INFJ Personality Guide, completely free. The book will teach you about the mindsets and motivations that cause you to do what you do as an INFJ. And you'll also learn about some common INFJ challenges and solutions to those challenges. Ultimately, I want you to understand that you're not messed up or broken, just different. You can get a copy of the book one of two ways. First, consider texting the letters INFJ to the number 444999. Or you can visit ispeakpeople.com/INFJ-personality-guide. I'm so glad that you took some time to watch this video. I hope that it served you. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, I would really encourage you to do that. There are new videos on a regular basis covering topics relevant to INFJs and helping you to better understand yourself or another INFJ whom you may know. If you're already a subscriber, thanks so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you on the next show.